so that you and other folks have access to this talk after we are finished. And hopefully our marketing department will help get those up by next week or maybe even the end of this week, along with the additional resources and the slides. So I just want to start by introducing myself. I'm Shoshana Funk. I'm the Senior Director of Helping at Jewish for Good. I have my colleagues here with me, Stacy, Emily, and Jordana. Thank you for joining us for this special program funded in part with grants from the Carolina Foundation for Jewish Seniors and the Leon Levine Foundation. Jewish for Good's Helping Department offers a comprehensive range of services that help people meet life's challenges. We deliver high-quality professional services for adults and their families through all stages of life. This includes counseling, case management, financial assistance, food pantry, and programs like this one. Much of what we offer is free, and all of it is open to everybody, Jewish or not. For more information, I invite you to visit our website, jewishforgood.org, to look at our upcoming older adult programs like Shmuzanosh, our Care Partner Support Group, and our Memory Cafe program. Additionally, we recently opened an adult day center, the Gindis Center, on site. For those who are interested in learning more about this, please don't hesitate to reach out. And just a couple housekeeping things. If you are interested in having closed captioning available today, you can click on the bottom, if you're on a computer, the bottom of the screen on Zoom that says closed captioning, and then the subtitles will appear. If you haven't already, you can change your name in your box on Zoom with whatever name you registered with, or if you don't know how to do that, just type your name into the chat and we can change it for you. And our speaker will get through her presentation today, but feel free to put questions into the chat as they arise, and then there will be plenty of time at the end for Q&A. And the slides will be available once everything is uploaded and ready to be shared on our website, and I will share that with you as well. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speaker. Our speaker today is Carol Krucoff. The presentation is Yoga for Healthy Aging. Carol Krucoff is a yoga therapist at Duke Integrative Medicine and co-director of Yoga for Seniors, which is dedicated to making yoga safe and effective for older adults. An award-winning journalist, Carol was founding editor of the Washington Post's health section and is author of several books, including Relax into Yoga for Seniors, a 6-week program for strength, balance, flexibility, and pain relief. She has consulted on several yoga research studies and co-authored numerous articles in medical journals. Carol has practiced yoga for 50 years and is grateful to have studied with master teachers from around the world. So we are so lucky to have Carol with us today. I will toss things over to you.
Well, thank you very much for that lovely introduction. I am really excited to be here this morning and to share my love of yoga and particularly safe yoga for older adults. So I'd like to start by, oops, why is my slide not advancing? I can't get my slide to advance. What's happening? Oh, there it goes.
There you go.
Thank you. I didn't have my arrow in the right place. So as you heard in the introduction, I'm both a yoga therapist and a health journalist, and my particular area of specialty is working with older adults to be safe and effective. I started practicing yoga when I was in my early 20s, and I'm now 71. So I began working with older adults and specializing in older adults about 20 years ago, and now I am one. So it's been a very interesting journey for me. In the first part of my career, I was mostly a journalist who wrote about health, and I've always been someone who's very interested in the intersection between physical activity and health. And in the last couple decades, I have converted to becoming a yoga therapist who also writes for medical journals. So there's been a great deal of research that's been done in the last couple decades to support the therapeutic applications of yoga. And in fact, you might say that yoga can hold the key to healthy aging. So this is just a little snapshot of some of the research that's been done that yoga may reduce the risk of many age-related disorders, including heart disease and metabolic syndrome, can help with blood pressure, heart rate, and insulin resistance, relieve anxiety and depression, ease back and neck pain, alleviate sleep problems, boost strength and reduce fall risk, reduce inflammation, and even improve immune function. And this is just a kind of tip of the iceberg overview. If you go to PubMed, which is the National Library of Medicine's repository for medical journal articles, and you enter the keyword yoga, you will find about 10,000 articles that are out there looking at the therapeutic benefits of yoga. And this is a big change. When I first started onto this field several decades ago, there were only a handful of studies. And now there's just a growing body of evidence that supports the health benefits of yoga, particularly for age-related issues. So what is yoga anyway, and how can it help? As yoga has become so popular in our culture, in some ways that's really great. It means I can wear my yoga clothes everywhere, and that's really wonderful. But in some ways it's not so great because there's a lot of misconceptions about yoga. When people think of yoga, they often bring to mind postures like these kind of crazy, out there, twisty, bendy party, I call them party poses, that are not accessible to most people. And when we talk about yoga for seniors, these are not any postures that I can do anymore or would recommend for older adults. But this is what I hear a lot. People will tell me, oh, I'm not flexible enough to do yoga. And to my mind, that's like saying, my house is way too messy to hire a cleaning service. You do not have to be flexible to do yoga. That is a complete misconception. Yoga is not about being able to twist yourself into a pretzel or stand on your head. Yoga is a holistic approach to mind, body, spirit well-being. So these are all yoga students, most of them my yoga students, doing the kind of postures that are much more appropriate and available to older adults and helpful. And there's really only one thing you need to be able to do to practice. And I wonder if you know what that is. What one thing might you need to be able to do to practice yoga? You have to be able to breathe. If you can breathe, you are in. Truly, that is it. We might have a philosophical argument about whether or not you have to be conscious, but that's another question for another day. If you can breathe, you can practice. There is nothing brand new about yoga. It is not a new fad, despite the popularity of yoga pants today. Yoga is a profound system of healing, self-development, and transformation. It originated thousands of years ago in India, and the word yoga comes from the Sanskrit word yuj, meaning to yoke or unite. So what's that about? So I am a city girl, so I needed to go to Google Images to find a picture of what the heck is a yoke and what does that have to do with yoga? And this is a yoke. So a yoke is that wooden contraption that was used in ancient times, and I guess is still used in some places today. And the purpose of the yoke is to unite or unify these two great beasts. And again, I'm a city girl, so I'll call them oxen. If somebody knows that there's something else, please forgive me. Oxen or bulls, these two big beasts. And they each are very powerful. And you yoke them together so they can move in one direction. So what does that have to do with yoga? So what are we yoking when we do the yoga practice? Well, we are yoking many things. On one level, we are harnessing and bringing together the mind and the body, and the breath is the tool by which we bring together the mind and the body. And on another level, we're uniting the individual, that little sense of I, me, mine, with the sense of something bigger, something greater, with the universal. Yoga is designed to quiet the mind and connect with the spirit. So yoga is really about connecting with what's called the translation I like the most is the true self. We get on the mat and we ask ourselves the big questions. Who am I and why am I here? So the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali is one of the classic texts of yoga that gives us the underpinnings of what is this practice that we call yoga. And the sutras are 195 aphorisms or sutras or threads. Sutra comes from the same links, from the same root as the word suture, threads. So there are 195 sutras in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And of those sutras, how many do you think deal with posture? Only two. Only two. The rest of them deal with the mind. So the sutras are a psychology textbook. Yoga is about working with the mind. And sutra number 2, which is here on this slide, tells the purpose of yoga. Yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. So yoga is about quieting our mind so we can hear that still small voice of the heart. And the picture that I used to illustrate this, the two pictures on the bottom are both of the same thing. They're both of Lake Erie. And the picture that's on the left, where there's a lot of white caps and everything is stirred up, is similar to the mind before yoga. So I used to teach a class at Duke Health and Fitness Center that was a 6 p.m. class. And people would come to that class straight from work and their minds would be churning like this. You could just see it in their eyes. They would, oh my gosh, the parking lot was so crowded and traffic was so bad and I didn't think I was going to get there and am I going to get home in time to make something for dinner? And you could just see all this fluctuations and this stirred up and this busyness of the mind. And then we'd spend an hour turning our attention inward and breathing and moving the body, moving energy through the body, stretching, staying present. And every good yoga class ends with a relaxation called Shavasana, which translates to the corpse pose, where we are invited to lie still and surrender to the earth. And at the end of the class, the mind tends to be like that clear picture on the right, where you can see all the way down to the bottom. And this is what we are looking for in yoga. We come to the mat all stirred up and lots of things going on, and hopefully we leave the mat with a greater sense of clarity and focus and intention and strength. So the yogic perspective, it's very holistic, which means that virtually everything in our lives, including our thoughts, our behaviors, and even our relationships, can impact our health. Now, yoga is much more than a workout. So this picture here is of the kosha model, which is the yogic view of the human being and what the human being is. Some people liken it to one of those Russian nesting dolls where you've got layer upon layer upon layer. So when we think of what the human body is in Western medicine, we often basically think about the physical body, our muscles, our bones, our joints, our cells. That's what we tend to think of in the West. In the yogic perspective, that physical body is just the outer layer. It's just one layer of our being. The next layer going inward is the energetic layer, the pranamaya kosha. You may have heard of the term prana. That's the name for the vital force or the energy in the yogic system. It's very similar to, if anyone is interested or practices Chinese medicine, the word qi and tai chi, that sense of a life force. So it's the energy body. You can see the effect of the energy body. You can see the chest move or the belly move when we breathe, but you can't really touch into it. The other bodies in this model are called the subtle bodies. So the emotional body, and then the wisdom body is what Carl Jung might have called the collective unconsciousness. If you've ever sort of known something, but you aren't sure how you know it, but you just in your heart, you know something, that's called the wisdom body. And at the very center, at the core of the human being is the bliss body, this Anandamaya kosha, which is the one part of us, according to the yogic wisdom, that does not change. So everything else is impermanent and it changes, but this Anandamaya kosha, which we try to touch into in our practice, is the unchanging part of ourselves. In some traditions, you might call that the soul or the spirit. So not a workout, more of a work in. So let's do a little practice right now. So yoga is about awareness. So I would invite you right now to just freeze. Please keep breathing, but don't move. And I would invite you to notice your posture. How are you sitting? Where is your head in relationship to our shoulders? So in our culture where almost everything we do rounds us forward, it's very common for people to have this forward head posture. Can lead to a lot of neck pain, particularly as we're doing our devices. And then notice, what are you sitting on? Well, yeah, you're probably sitting on a chair, but what part of your anatomy are you sitting on? Are you sitting on your sit bones? Are you sitting on your sacrum? And please, as you do this exploration with a sense of kindness and self-compassion, just interested, curious in your habits, what shape is your spine? Does your spine have its natural S curve right now, or are you all crunched over trying to see your screen? What's going on with your jaw, your shoulders, and your face? So many of us, myself included, wear night guards at night because we grind our teeth. And through my practice, I've learned that I also tend to grind my teeth during the day. So that's part of my practice, is relaxing my jaw, relaxing my face. And what about your chin? Is it tipped up or is it tucked? So learning how to come into good alignment is a very important and critical part of the yoga posture practice. So you're practicing. So I'd like to invite you to practice one of my favorite poses, which is seated mountain pose, which is illustrated here. So if you're not familiar with where your sit bones are, there are these two knobs at the base of your pelvis. The fancy medical name is ischial tuberosities, but we will call them the sit bones. And when I teach, I invite people to kind of shamelessly, you can't see me in this where I'm sitting, but shamelessly reach under your bottom, move the flesh away so that your sit bones drop into the chair. So you can see this guy has really nice alignment. He's sitting on the sit bones and the very top of the head. So but if we were to pat our head, it's kind of silly, but pat, 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 pat. And then we can move the hand away. Feel that place you were tapping. That is called the crown of the head. And I always like to teach newcomers to my class where the crown of the head is, because yoga teachers talk about it all the time. And I think I'd been taking yoga for 10 years. The teacher was talking about the crown of the head, the crown of the head. And I pictured this like Burger King crown that went all the way around the head. And that's not it. The crown of the head is this spot right at the top. It's said to be the uppermost chakra, which is an energy center in the yogic tradition. It's said to be the place where the spirit enters the body at birth, which is why it's soft in a baby. and the place where the spirit is said to leave the body at death, which is why you're not supposed to stand over the head of a dying person. But you can see, and I hope you've maybe made these adjustments from that kind of slumped sitting. This guy's sitting on his sacrum, and now he's sitting on his sit bones. The crown of the head lifts up. So when we're sitting in good mountain pose, we're on our sit bones, the crown of the head is lifted, the shoulders are relaxed. If you were looking at us from the side, you'd see the ear over the shoulder over the hip. And learning to sit in with good alignment can go a long way to helping relieve back pain and neck pain. So I'd like to talk a little bit about yoga's toolkit. We were just practicing a posture. And when people think of yoga, they think, I'm going to do yoga. They think about postures. That's what the average person thinks that yoga is. I'm doing yoga, I'm doing postures. And yes, the postures are a really important part of the yoga practice, teaching us proper alignment, helping us strengthen weak muscles and stretch tight muscles. But that's just one piece of the pie. The next, and maybe the most important tool, is breathing. Learning how to breathe optimally. Breathing practice can offer stress relief right under your nose. Meditation is another of yoga's tools to help us calm and steady the mind. And then the final tool in the toolkit are principles, the yogic principles, which are right thinking practices to help us find ease in body, mind, and spirit. And in my book, these get not enough attention. And as I've gotten older with my yoga practice, I have come to appreciate so much more the importance of yogic principles like gratitude, kindness, self-compassion, meditation, breathing. All of these have been, I still do a posture practice, but the rest of the toolkit, particularly for those of us at this stage of life, can be really important keys to healthy aging. So when we talk about yoga in the West, yeah, that was me when I was a whole lot younger. That's camel pose. When we talk about yoga in the West, we're really talking about one kind of yoga. There are many kinds of yoga, but we're talking about hatha yoga. Hatha yoga is the yoga of physical practices. And so basically, all yoga that we talk about in the West is hatha yoga. And hatha yoga is a way that the ancients looked to find enlightenment by taking care of this vehicle, this vessel, the body, that houses the spirit. So the reason that the posture practice was created was because disease was seen as an obstacle to enlightenment. It is really hard to sit still in meditation and reach enlightenment if you've got a bellyache or you've got back pain. So these postures were designed to balance and integrate the mind, body, and spirit to enhance energy flow and stimulate the body's own natural healing processes. Again, because the body is seen as the vehicle for the spirit. So the becoming healthy was not the end in itself. It was the means to the end. The end would be transformation or enlightenment. So breathing, so we talked a little bit about postures. The next tool I'd like to focus on is breathing. And of course, breathing can have a powerful effect on the mind and the body and the spirit. So on one level, of course, breathing is about oxygen exchange. We take in oxygen, we expel carbon dioxide. Breathing, of course, enhances circulation. And what about pain modulation with breathing? So can anyone think of the first time that breathing was used in Western medicine specifically to help with pain? Those of us who've had children may have practiced Lamaze breathing. Well, back when I had my kids, who are now 40 and 37, it was Lamaze breathing. There may be other impacts, but breathing practices were actually brought into hospitals because there was good evidence that breathing could reduce pain and reduce the need for pain medication, help people get out of the hospital faster, save money. Breathing can have both a calming effect and an energizing effect. And there are many kinds of breathing practices that are part of the yoga toolkit. In many languages, there's a recognition and an understanding that breath and spirit are really one and the same. So in Sanskrit, that word is prana. We talked about it a little before when we were talking about the energetic body, the pranamaya kosha. So prana is that breath, that vital force. In Latin, the word is spiritus, the Latin word for breath. In Hebrew, neshama. In Greek, pneuma. So think about pneumonia, that root. And in English, respiration, we kind of poke into the spirit a little bit. But there is this recognition that the breath and the spirit have that connection. Breathing's right under your nose. Anytime, anywhere, you can use your breath to bring you into the present moment, to create that mindfulness. And the breath can influence emotional states. It can help you enhance energy when you're tired and calm you down when you're agitated. It's the only physiologic function that can be done both completely consciously and unconsciously. So you don't have to think about it. Your body will breathe, thank goodness. But if you take control of your breath and you purposely change your breath, say making the exhale longer, it can change what's going on in your mind. So BKS Iyengar is was a very famous yoga guru. He passed away a few years ago, but he said, control the breath and thereby control the mind. So again, it's got these two different sets of nerves and muscles, voluntary and involuntary. So by doing breath work, it provides this unique doorway into the nervous system. So we typically, in my classes and in my practice, I typically am using the breath to calm down. You can also use the breath to rev up. Breath work is it's getting a lot more attention recently. There was a very popular book, I think it's still on the New York Times bestseller list, called Breathing. I can't think of the author right now. That basically supports everything the yogis have been teaching for thousands of years. So let's go back to do a little practice. So if you've come out of your nice seated mountain pose, if you're in a habit that you might have of how you sit, you might sit on your sit bones, lengthen up through the crown of the head, because it's really important to have as good alignment as you can when you're doing breathing. If you're very crunched over, it can be very hard to take a big full breath. So I would invite you to please bring one hand to your chest and place the other hand on your lower belly. And then at your own time, when you're ready, begin to welcome the breath as fully and completely as you can into your system. Just welcome the breath as fully and completely as you can into your system. And as you breathe, and you got this. You've been breathing all your life. You know how to do this. Don't worry about it. You've got it. I'd like you to ask yourself a question. When I take a big, full, round, deep breath, which moves more, my chest or my belly? Which should move more, my chest or my belly? And, don't say anything. You don't have to put it in the chat. When I do this in a live and in person, I often ask people to close their eyes and raise their hands, because I don't want people to interfere with the other person's experience. So in your experience, as you're breathing this way, breathing in, filling, breathing out, emptying, just this. Which moves more, the chest or the belly? Which should move more in a big, full breath, chest or the belly? And then when you've decided, have your answer, please rest your hands down by your sides. And let's find out. So this is how healthy breathing mechanics should happen. So the answer, for those of you who might not be sure, is that the belly, when we take a big full breath that way, what happens is the air or the prana comes in through the nose or the mouth. We prefer in yoga, we say the nose is for breathing, the mouth is for eating. Nose breathing is much preferred because the nose has these little hairs that warm and moisten and filter the air. But sometimes we can't breathe through the nose. We've got a cold or allergies or some other reason. Breathe through your mouth. It's just breathe. So the air comes in through one of those areas. It comes into the lungs. The lungs fill the diaphragm, this big parachute-like muscle that separates the upper part of the chest from the lower abdominal part. The diaphragm descends, it pushes on the belly, and the belly expands. So on that big full breath in, the belly rounds. And then as we exhale, the belly contracts, the diaphragm rises, and it pushes the air out in exhalation. So this is called the relaxed abdominal breath. And I've got to say, it's a little bit harder to feel when you're sitting. So if you were confused by this or this, you couldn't feel it in your belly, I invite you to later on lie down like this guy's doing and practice it on your back. And it's much easier to feel when you're lying on your back, the relaxed abdominal breath. So I'd like to take you through this right now. It's called yoga belly breathing, even though the air doesn't really go into the belly, but the belly rounds on the inhale and it comes inward on the exhale. So we've got that rise and the fall. And the people who tend to know the proper breathing mechanics, diaphragmatic breathing or yoga breathing, or either practiced yoga or are singers. Singers know this. You might see Pavarotti take a big breath before singing and the belly rounds. People who play wind instruments usually know this. And in recent time, when I first started doing this kind of talk many years ago, people would say, oh, it's the chest, because there's this misconception that in a full breath, we puff out our chest and we suck in our stomach, a kind of a military look. But more people are becoming aware of breath work, which calms the mind and grounds the body. So let's just play with this for a moment. So find your nice seated mountain pose. If you'd like, you can place one or both hands on your belly. You're welcome to close your eyes while you do this, or not. Either one is fine. But just take a moment. Shoulders are quiet, face is relaxed. And at your own time, not in any rush, breathing in if you can through the nose, easy breaths in, filling, feel the belly round into your hands. And on the exhale, the belly sinks inward just a little bit. Breathing in, the belly rounds. Breathing out, the belly sinks. So breathing in through the nose. Some people like breathing out through the mouth, and if that works for you, I'm not opposed to it. Although, again, there are advantages to breathing in and out through the nose if that works. Breathing in and breathing out. And then when that's complete for you, relax your hands, open your eyes if they're closed. So you've now practiced a yoga posture, seated mountain pose, and yoga belly breathing. So the next one of the yoga tools from the yoga toolkit I'd like to talk about is meditation. So meditation quiets the mind and can channel its power into physical, emotional, and spiritual healing. So with meditation, it helps us harness the mind-body connection. And as the Buddha said, we are what we think. So with our thoughts, we create the world. If you're interested in meditation, I highly recommend the teachings of this gentleman, Thich Nhat Hanh. He was a Zen Buddhist master. He actually passed away a couple of years ago, but he has a community. He founded a community called Plum Village, and they have an app which is absolutely free. There are no ads. I donate it to it on my birthday because I think it's so valuable and I always recommend it. Um, and there are many different resources and meditations in this app. Again, highly recommended. But let's practice one right now. One of my favorites. It takes less than a minute. On the in breath, we recite mentally to ourselves, breathing in, I calm myself. On the out breath, breathing out, I smile. Let's just do that a couple times. Breathing in, I calm myself. Breathing out, I smile. I did this right before the talk. Breathing in, I calm myself. Breathing out, I smile. So that's meditation. It does not have to be sitting in lotus position for an hour trying to empty your mind. In fact, you cannot empty your mind. That's a misconception about meditation. In meditation, we fill our mind with one thing. And here we're filling it with this phrase. My husband is a cardiologist at Duke, and he's an interventional cardiologist. He's a plumber. He opens the clogged pipes, puts stents in people. And when he teaches his fellows, he gives every one of the fellows a copy of Thich Nhat Hanh's, well, Thich Nhat Hanh has many books, but the one Mitch likes in particular, and I like too, is Peace is Every Step, the Power of Mindfulness in Everyday Life. And he teaches the fellows that before you walk into a patient's room, take a breath in, a breath out, and smile. So doesn't that create a whole different affect from them walking into a patient's room when you're, oh my God. So that's meditation. And then yogic principles. Again, these are the precepts and attitudes. It's not just what you do, it's how you do it. And I feel these don't get enough attention. And again, as I've matured with my practice, I have even more appreciation for how important these are. So yoga is compassionate to yourself and to others. It's one of the things that's really surprised me as I've been a yoga teacher and now a yoga therapist working one-on-one with people is how hard people are on themselves. And the things we say to ourselves, oh my goodness, you wouldn't say that to your best friend. Be kind to yourself. It's not competitive. It does not matter what anybody else is doing. Where are you right now? It's not just mental. It's, oh, isn't that interesting? This is what I'm feeling today. And it's creating that balance between doing and undoing. In Western exercise, we're encouraged to strive and push and give me 110% and go for it. And in yoga, give me about 80%. I would like you to move to a place where you're challenging yourself, but I don't want you to strain. So don't be lazy, but don't be pushy. And it's that don't be pushy that many of us in Western culture find challenging. And when we sort of get it, that we might back off from the striving, that can have a wonderful cascade of positive effects. So if you're interested in a rant that I wrote in the Huffington Post, gosh, it's been quite a while, when yoga was getting so popular, and there's so many classes out there that are called yoga, but in my opinion, they're not yoga, they're yoga flavored exercise, because they're taught, do this posture and you got to get your hand to the foot and you got to do it. And that's not yoga, that's yoga flavored exercise. So how can yogic principles affect your health? Well, we know from very profound evidence that thoughts and emotions can have a strong impact on health, particularly toxic emotions. And this in the cardiology realm, there's a lot of good evidence to suggest that people who have a hostile nature or who are angry are at higher risk of heart disease and higher risk of complications when they do have therapies for heart disease. And other emotions, stress, depression, and loneliness, all of those can affect our health. In fact, this year, the US Surgeon General, or maybe it was last year, had a report on loneliness as being, and isolation as being a health hazard on par with smoking cigarettes. So thoughts and emotions have a powerful impact on health. And the picture that I've chosen to illustrate this is one that's very personal for me. When I first started teaching yoga in 2000, I was kind of making that transition from being this journalist who was writing about health and fitness to becoming a health professional who also wrote. I had just started teaching my yoga class, and I was driving and I was turning into the parking lot of what was then called Wachovia Bank. Now it's Wells Fargo. That's how long ago that was. And somebody cut me off. Some guy just went right in front of me and cut me off. And I slammed on my brakes and I did what I used to do back then. I'm not proud of it, but I stuck my hand out the window and I started to make a very unflattering gesture. And then I froze. I pulled my hand in. My heart was pounding. And I thought, what if that had been one of my yoga students? You know, this yoga teaching is a lot more than just showing up on the mat and teaching the class. You know, I got to walk the walk and talk the talk. So I pulled into a parking space and my heart was pounding and I thought, whoa, you know, this is not just about what I do on the mat. This is about how I live my life. You know, maybe that person was rushing to the hospital. They just got a call that a loved one had been hit by a car. Maybe that's why they cut me off. Or maybe they, you know, were rushing to the bank because they are getting foreclosed on their house. Or maybe they were just a jerk. But can I have compassion for that person? I sat there and I said, what would my teacher do? Well, she'd probably send the loving kindness. May that person be healthy. May that person be happy. May that person be peaceful. May that person be safe. So that practice of not having this knee-jerk anger and instead being calm, who do you think that benefited? The guy who cut me off benefited me. What's that going to do for my blood pressure if I change those habits? And so that's how thoughts and emotions can have a strong impact on health. And so yogic principles, I feel, are really an important and neglected part of the practice. One of these principles is santosha, contentment. Gratitude can be a habit of mind, and it's such a healing habit. We learn to view the world through the lens of what's right. In Hebrew, the practice of recognizing the good is called hakarat hatov. And it's this attitude, this healthy, healing attitude of gratitude is a part of many spiritual practices. In fact, the Psalm says, "This is the day that the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it." And that's the practice of gratitude. And there's a lot of research support and a growing body of evidence. If you want to read more, go to the Greater Good at the Berkeley website. If you look at, so this is a page from PubMed, and I searched for gratitude in the medical journals. There were over 2,000 results on the health impacts of gratitude alone. So the truth is, aging can be challenging. You know, what do we say? It's aging ain't for sissies, and that's real. This is BKS Iyengar. I mentioned him earlier. He was a very prominent yoga guru. He said, yoga teaches us to cure what need not be endured and to endure what cannot be cured. So in my 50 years on the mat, my practice has evolved. That's me many years ago doing, gosh, what was I in? Lotus, I've seated lotus, flying lotus there. And that's me more recently in my practice with my granddaughter Josephine. We're doing cobra pose on the yoga mat. So over 50 years, my yoga practice has been profoundly helpful as I've gone through many health challenges. I had open heart surgery in 2008. I was born with a congenital valvular abnormality. I had a bicuspid aortic valve when I turned 54. It had gotten very narrow, so I have an artificial heart valve right now. So it's a bovine valve. When all the other yoga teachers are going om, I'm going moo because it's a cow valve. And this is an article that I wrote for Yoga Journal about how I used my yoga practice to help me prepare for my surgery and recover from my surgery. I spent 4 days in a hyponatremic coma in 2003. I was doing a marathon with a friend of mine to celebrate my 50th birthday, which I almost didn't live to see because we went to Jamaica and I drank a lot of water, too much water. And when I got dizzy toward the end of the marathon, the medics gave me more water, which flushed the sodium out of my system. I finished the marathon, but then I was air ambulance to Duke. I was in a coma for 4 days. I am so grateful that I, thanks to great medical care and a nurse who handbagged me on that little plane, Jackie Farley, shout out to the woman who saved my life. And it was in that experience when I woke up in the neurointensive care unit of Duke Medical Center with no idea how I got there that I realized, wow, I can practice yoga in my hospital bed. I never really went back to the very intense Ashtanga practice that I had been doing. I did go back to a vigorous yoga practice, but it opened my eyes to, well, I can still breathe. I can still pray. I can do some chanting. I can do gentle movement. It was a life-altering experience. I have a little benign brain tumor, which I've watched and waited for 20 years. I had some radiation therapy. It seems to have stopped growing. Yay. But I've also written about that. So the link to that article in the New York Times and how my yoga practice has helped me deal with this. AFib. So lots of tsuris. We all have it. And the yoga practice has helped me through it. My most recent excitement is this lovely melanoma that I had removed in September. And here I am in March, a little makeup, you'd never know. Thank you to Dr. Cook and Mohs Surgery at Duke. But yeah, it is challenging. And that is the reality of aging. We are not going to last forever. These bodies are not meant to last forever. And living with health challenges can be a powerful daily practice. So on one hand, the recognition of impermanence might seem kind of morbid, but truly it invites us to become so grateful and so aware of how precious our lives are and that every day is a gift. And this is all aligned with the practice. So to kind of sum up, I would say yoga can be an ideal practice for boomers and beyond because yes, it's a physical activity and that's what everybody comes to. You know, it can help us get stronger, reduce our risk of falls, keep us flexible, relieve pain, all of that good stuff. Boost the strength, balance, and flexibility, all of that good stuff. And the breathing and the meditation can help us with our emotional states. You know, I'm waiting for the biopsy results to come back. Well, let me tell you that breathing and meditation can be really, really helpful. And the guiding principles can help counter toxic emotions, that anger and the hostility, and help us cultivate the positive emotions that can be so important to a healthy lifestyle. And community, if we're practicing, even when we're practicing on Zoom, even in this, you know, we're all in our little bubbles, but we're all also together. Community can help relieve loneliness. And as I mentioned, loneliness can be a risk factor for health problems. Getting started. So somebody sent in a question they had, how do I get back into my practice after I have been away from the practice for a while. And one thought would be to try some of these little short practices. So during the pandemic, made a YouTube channel to support my students to practice at home. And there are, they're not fancy, high production value practices. And I hope that you can find them useful, but most of them are relatively short. Some as short as 3 or 5 minutes. And it's these little practices that you can weave into your day. There's a couple series I call kitchen yoga, which are yoga posture practices that you can do in your kitchen. Say you're waiting for the water to boil. You put the water up to boil, you got a few minutes till the water boils. There's a kitchen yoga practice that you can do. I think I have 3 different posture practices. And there are some that are just audios. One is a relaxation audio if you're having trouble sleeping. So just try some simple, easy practices. And if you fall and you stop, please don't consider yourself a failure. Just start again. It's like when we meditate on the breath and our mind wanders, we just bring it back and start again. So thank you very much for your attention. It's been my pleasure to talk today, and maybe we'll have time to do a little seated practice. I'm going to leave that to our wonderful hosts to let me know how to go.
Well, thank you so much, Carol. That was so informative and helpful and relatable, and just amazing to see everything that you've been through and how yoga has really helped carry you through some of these incredible challenges that you've talked about. So I wanted to just kind of read some of the comments in the chat first to see, as you were talking, some people kind of chimed in. So Deb said that I am 72 and have been practicing yoga with my 76-year-old instructor for 4 years. It's the best part of my week.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
So you have some fellow yogis here.
Great.
And someone had noted that childbirth, of course, is the time when we all have learned to breathe, to manage pain. And then Cheryl said, I read that practicing breathing with resistance breathing devices or a breathing device helps high blood pressure. What do you think about this?
That's a really interesting question. Truth be told, I do not know what a resistance breathing device is, so I can't speak to that. With hypertension, the breathing practice that I like and that I encourage is an extended exhalation practice. Rather than using a device, I would seek your doctor's advice on that if that's something that you would like to do. However, just learning good breathing mechanics and extending your exhale can be very powerful. We could play with that if you like. Would you like to try extended exhalation breathing? It would take a couple of minutes. We have time for that?
Sure. And I wanted to give Cheryl a chance, to the person who asked the question, to if you had a follow-up to that, or if you want to explain sort of what a resistance breathing device is for those who don't know.
It is almost like a respiratory therapy machine that causes you to exercise your diaphragm by breathing against resistance. And I do believe that it does some of that by the exhalation resistance. But I read about it as a treatment for hypertension, and they talked about having research that supports that. And then I looked on Amazon, and there are multiple ones of those. And so I was just curious if that would assist in you're talking about a natural way to do this. They talked about a certain amount of resistance pressure that these little devices create, sort of a back pressure. So your husband's a cardiologist, maybe he has a word or two, but I am curious about this.
Yeah, I would definitely check with your doctor about that, particularly if you are hypertensive. I would see what your doctor thinks about these devices. Um, and for strengthening the diaphragm, that is something we can do in a yoga practice without a device, which, again, I'm happy to. Shall we try that? Do we have time to do that?
Good.
Let's. So I'm going to go to my chair. So let's try to do some diaphragm strengthening breathing practice. So finding the sit bones, moving the flesh away. I've got a little pillow here, so back is supported, feet are on the floor, crown of the head is extended up to the sky. So we'll bring the hands to the lower belly. And on the inhale, when we breathe in through the nose and fill the body with breath, the belly rounds. And on the exhale, the belly sinks. So breathing in, the belly rounds. Breathing out, the belly sinks. Breathing in, the belly rounds. Breathing out, the belly sinks. Good. And then just continue at your own pace, breathing in and out, just at your own pace, at your own time. And then I would invite you to mentally count the length of your inhale and the length of your exhale. So in your mind, it might be something like 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. And just sort of see if you can make your exhale a little bit longer than your inhale without straining or striving or struggling. So if you're inhaling to 4, you might exhale to 6. Inhaling to 3, you might exhale to 4 or 5. Just play with that for a few moments. So then as you continue, you might play with making that exhale up to twice as long as the inhale. So finish the breath that you're on. Allow your hands to rest in your lap. I don't want to overdo it with anybody, particularly if this is new for you. When we make the exhale longer than the inhale, it tells the central nervous system that everything is fine. It is impossible to be in fight or flight. That stress response, it's impossible to have that stress response when we have a long exhale. You might think about if you've been very busy and you've been rushing around and you finally sit down, what do? You take that long sigh. So it's that extended exhale. And the extended exhalation breath can be very therapeutic for people who have hypertension. So just in terms of breathing practices that are helpful for high blood pressure, that is one that I can recommend. And I would definitely ask your doctor about these resistance devices because again, I'm not aware of them. Any other questions, or should we do a little more practice in the chair?
Well, there were, let's see, there are mostly comments in the chat. I think if you're ready to do a little more from the chair, that's great. If you don't mind speaking up just a little bit, because it's a little bit quieter as you're further away from the screen.
Okay. That's fine. Yeah, I did not put my mic on. So let's sit up nice and tall in the chair. Let the arms rest down by the sides. Crown of the head lifts up to the sky. Let's rotate the palms out and up, only going as high as is comfortable. Palms together, see the thumbs, and straight down the center line of the body, resting at the heart. We'll do that again. Breathing in, arms only as high as is comfortable for you today. This is a salutation. Breathing out. Just keep the breath flowing. Don't hold your breath. Gather energy from the universe and bring it right to your heart center. Good. And rest the arms down by the side to shake them out. And let's lift the shoulders up and drop them down and lift them up. And relax them down. Maybe even make some sounds. Breathing in and out. And circling the shoulders and back the other way. Good. And then just rest your hands on your lap. And I'm going to sit a little bit forward in my chair. And let's lift the heels up, put the heels down. And let's keep the heels on the ground. Lift the toes and the balls of the foot up and down. Heels up and down. Toes up and down, heels up and down. Lift one heel and the other toe. One toe and the other heel. Good. And side to side, try it each side. And then relax down. Good. Let's rest the arms down by the sides. Sitting up nice and tall. Extend the arms out at about shoulder height. Relax the shoulders down. When you're ready, rotate your right palm up, turn the head, look over your right arm, straight down that center line. And then back to the center, put the head on straight, turn the left palm up, look over the left arm. And then back the other way. And then continue this at your own pace. If your arms get tired, it is fine to rest and relax. Keep the breath comfortable and steady. And then let's turn both palms up. The head comes back on straight. When you're ready, inhale, reach for the side wall, stretch nice and long. On an exhalation, hug yourself. I hope you love yourself and maybe gently rock. Just nice and easy. And then come back to the center. And let's lift the elbows off the shoulders. I'm sorry, off the chest. Lift the elbows off the chest and turn the elbows to the right and the head to the left. Come back to the center, elbows to the left, head to the right, and back to center. And then lift the chest, keep the chest very lifted and tall, and just relax the chin a little bit. And while you're here, notice which arm you put on top, because we're going to switch. So at your own time, when you're ready, on an inhale, extend the arms out to the side, reaching nice and long. On an exhale, drop the shoulders down away from the ears. Rotate the palms up. Breathing in, reach for the side walls. Exhale, hug yourself. This time, put the other arm on top, whichever arm you didn't have on top the first time. Gently rock. And then come back to the center. Let's lift the elbows off the chest. Turn the elbows right, the head left. Come back to the center, turn the elbows left, head right. And then back to the center. Good. And relax and release. Let's keep the shoulders squared off and just turn the head. So turn the head so the chin moves towards one shoulder. Look out of the corner of your eye toward the back wall. See what you can see. Come on back to the center. Turn your head the other way. Look out of the corner of your eye toward the back wall. See what you can see. Come back to the center. Good. So we'll do another little gentle twist. This time we'll make sure we're sitting up nice and tall. We'll start the twist with the belly. So we'll turn the belly to the right, and then the chest to the right, and then the head to the right. The hands will slide on the thighs, look over your shoulder toward the back wall. Come back to center. Belly to the left, chest to the left, head to the left, gaze to the left. Hands slide on the thighs and come back to the center. So let's spread the fingers nice and wide, big wide fingers. Make a bear claw, make a fist, but make sure it's a soft fist, not a tight fist, no tension in the shoulders, as if you were holding a baby bird in your hands. Spread them wide, bear claws, soft fist, bear claws, spread them wide, bear claws, spread them wide, soft fist, spread them wide, shake it out. Relax the hands, come up on the, here I've got to scoot back a little bit so you can see my toes. Spread your toes out nice and wide, curl your toes in, spread them out, curl them in. I'm wondering if some people had to kick off their shoes. Spread them out, curl them in, keep them spread, toes and fingers spread, curl them all, spread them all. Curl the right hand and the left foot, curl the right foot and the left hand, spread them all, curl them all, shake them out. Pat your feet, jazz hands, breathe. Take them out, take them back, take them out, take them back. Play the piano. Keep breathing, keep patting. Always find to rest if it's getting to be too much. Play the violin. Keep patting. Play the violin with your other hand. Oh, that's really hard. And then rest. So please place your hands over your heart. Can you feel the impact of that practice? What's going on in that heart? Send some gratitude to your heart for all the hard work that it does day and night, whether we pay attention or not. And then rest. How are we doing on time?
Well, we could do a little bit more and then maybe save some time for questions if folks have any questions or feedback.
Okay, so let's do some side stretch. So take a moment and really get grounded in your chair and grounded in your sit bones. And from here, when you're ready, relax your right arm down by your side. Let your left hand rest on your left hip. And I am not mirroring, because if I say left and do right, then I start to twitch. So just make sure you do either, both sides. If you want to mirror me, that's fine. So from here, when you're ready, rotate that palm out and up and go over to the side. Stretch nice and long and root down through that hip. Root strongly through the hip. And from here, let's turn the head and look up toward the palm, and then turn the head and look down toward the floor. Turn the head and look up toward the palm and down toward the floor. And one more time, up toward the palm and down toward the floor. And then relax. Let's do the other side. So grounding that hip, arm comes down, palm is out and up, reaching up nice and long, side bending just a little bit, rooting down through that hip, making space in the side body, breathing into that space. And then let's turn and let's look up. And then we'll turn the head and look down. And looking up. And looking down. And up. And down. Good. And relax, rest. Let's do a little practice that is nice for the wrists. So bring the palms together in front of your heart. So this is actually, I'm going to come closer to my screen so you can see my hands. This is called Anjali Mudra in yoga. It's kind of like a little book. So let's open the book as if you were reading the book. Backs of the hands come together, fingers come down and around, and you're back where you started from. Good. So let's read the book. Backs of the hands together, fingers towards the body, down and around, back where you started. One more time. Read the book. Backs of the hands together, fingers toward, and all the way around. Want to reverse it? So the book is away from you. Backs of the hands come together, down and around, back where you started. Show me your book. Backs of the hands together, down and around, back where you started. Last one. Show me your book. Down and around, backs of the hands together, back where you started. So back in the chair. Make sure that your back is supported by the chair. Feet on the ground, head in the sky, good seated mountain pose posture. Let's lift the right leg up and then bring it down. And the left leg up and bring it down. And continue at your own pace, at your own time, alternating legs. So this can be very strengthening for the quadriceps, which are called the muscles of independence, because they're the ones that we need to use to get up out of a chair. That's one of the reasons why people are sometimes cannot live independently, is if they can't get themselves up out of a chair. So for many of us, this will be enough. If you're ready for a little more, you could lift that leg up and maybe circle the ankle a few times. Big circles one way, big circles the other. And then that foot comes down, try it on the other side. Easy circles one way, easy circles the other. And then come back. Good. So give yourself a pat on the back. You did such a nice job with your chair yoga practice today. Pat, 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 pat. And then take the other hand. You're probably using your dominant hand, aren't you? And invite that elbow up toward the sky. Breathe into this. Breathe into this. And let's pat ourselves on the back with the other hand. Yay, we made it to aging and thriving today. And take that other elbow up toward the sky. Breathe into this. And release. So take a moment to bring your palms together, thumbs to heart, heart to thumbs. We take a moment to be grateful for the gift of breath, whatever else you choose to be grateful for today. Thanks for playing. I'll see if there are any more questions.
That was lovely. Thank you so much, Carol, for leading us in that. I feel calmer. It's amazing what you can do just from the chair.
Oh, isn't it? It's amazing, especially when you're sitting with good posture in your chair.
Yes. I just want to read back some of the comments and questions from the chat. So somebody said that it's a beautiful gift that your husband is giving to his students, right? Taking a breath before seeing his patients. Somebody mentioned Steve Jobs in his Stanford grad speech talks about the value of a limited time on Earth. I think that was when sort of towards the end of your topic, of your presentation. And then just a lot of really wonderful positive feedback about today's program and about you, that you're amazing. Thank you for sharing it all. Yoga is the best, as well as meditation. Thank you for sharing all of your experiences and knowledge. It's an excellent conference, and just reflecting on the whole aging and thriving topics being meaningful. Someone said, so interesting. I have not done yoga regularly since COVID started, but I need to get back to it. So maybe you're lighting a fire under some of us today.
Wonderful.
And then there was one question about osteoporosis. So for those who may have osteoporosis, are there things that you should avoid or not do in yoga?
I'm so glad that question came up because this is it's a very, very important question. So osteoporosis, for those who are not familiar, is a disorder of reduced bone density, and it is very, very common. And yeah, I have low bone density. I haven't crossed the threshold to osteoporosis, but there are so many practices. There are numerous practices that are very commonly taught in yoga that are contraindicated for people with osteoporosis. We cover this in a chapter in our book, Relax into Yoga for Seniors, which I know is available in a bunch of libraries. And the most important to remember is avoid loaded spinal flexion. So any poses where your back is going to round when you're sitting or standing is not something that is advised. So that can increase vertebral fracture risk. So any straight-legged forward bends, here, let me demonstrate for a minute. So what do physical therapists tell us if we're going to bend, if we're going to pick something up? They tell us to bend our knees, right? Bend your knees, keep that neutral spine, pick it up, bring it in towards you. However, in the yoga practice, if people are familiar with sun salutations, there's a posture called Uttanasana, standing forward bend, where you swan dive forward, and as it's taught, you're supposed to keep your legs straight and continue going forward. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate that because this is as far as I can safely go. If I were to go more without bending my knees, I could have a vertebral fracture. So and that's true. It's also true in seated poses too. So there are postures. Here I'm in neutral spine, but if I were to go forward any more, my back would round. This would be loaded spinal flexion, which can be risky for those of us with low bone density. So I'm very careful about my practice and my teaching, and I make the kind of the assumption that most postmenopausal women and many men, something like 50% of all people 50 and older in the US will have an osteoporotic fracture in their lifetime. And very often people don't know they have low bone density until they have a fracture. It's a silent disorder. So the avoid loaded spinal flexion, avoid loaded rotation. So that's holding something and twisting with it. So you're pulling a turkey out of the oven. You want to make sure you turn your body and put the turkey down, not twist holding it. So that's not, the turkey pose isn't one you do in a yoga class, but there are many twists in yoga. You want to avoid end range rotation. That can also be risky with osteoporosis. So end range rotation, we do all the time in yoga class. You take a twist, as that means twisting as far as you can possibly go. And then what do we do in yoga? Not only do we twist as far as we can possibly go, but then we push it. We put our elbow on the outside of our thigh, and then we use that force to twist more. Well, I used to do all that stuff when I was 20 and 30 and 40. I don't do that anymore. I still twist. I mean, as you can see in the chair class, it's important to be able to maintain spinal rotation. It's a functional movement. If you're driving a car, you're going to need to keep those rotational skills, or you're not going to be able to drive very effectively. So it's the end range. So in general, for yoga in general for older adults, I'd say avoid extremes. And for osteoporosis, yeah, I don't do shoulder stand anymore or headstand. That's just, the question, I ask myself, and when I teach teachers, why are you teaching this pose? What's the intention? And there are ways to get inversions without standing on your head.
That's really helpful. Thank
Yeah, I
you.
hope so. That was a long answer, and it's a very important question. And there's more information too on our website, Yoga for Seniors. There's a couple of the papers that we've written in medical journals that talk specifically about osteoporosis. And again, in the lay version is in our Relax into Yoga's for Seniors book, what to do and what not to do. And there's a
Well,
lot that you can do, so don't feel limited. There's so much you can do.
and speaking of your book, Erin wrote in the chat, thank you so much for joining us. I'm leading a weekly chair yoga class in the Adult Day Center at the JCC, and your book has been my North Star. What a thrill to learn from you directly.
Thank you. How
Not
nice.
a fan. It's really nice. And uh, other folks have said this was the most informative program. They're so grateful. Thank you, Carol. God bless. Stay healthy. You are amazing. And Beth Britt said, I've been one of those who was scared to try yoga and so appreciate your positive approach. I think I have the courage now. Thanks so much, Carol. So lovely. And there was one more question about yoga with arthritis. I imagine you cover that in your book as well, but someone mentioned having a very arthritic hip and limited motion with it.
Yeah, we do. There is a chapter on arthritis in our book, and it's just so common. I assume you mean osteoarthritis, because there are many kinds of arthritis. You know, rheumatoid arthritis is a systemic condition, but when you talk about it just for one hip, probably osteoarthritis. I'm a big believer in physical therapy, and I always, if somebody's got a particular issue, encourage them to talk with their doctor, see a physical therapist, and yes, you can do yoga. There's many things that you can do. It's important to recognize that movement is essential to relieving arthritis pain. So there can be this vicious cycle with arthritis. People have pain when they move, so they stop moving, and then the pain gets worse because often, you know, they stop moving, but they don't stop eating, so they'll gain weight and the extra weight on the joints. Joints need to move through their full range of motion every day. Your range of motion may be limited if you have something going on with your hip. Doing a movement in a least loaded position, which means you're not putting weight on it. So if you've got hip arthritis, standing poses may be more challenging for you. So lying down might be something that you can do where you can move your hip through full range of motion. So for example, let me see if I can, you can see this. If you're on your back and say, this is the hip that's bothering me, you know, hip circles where you're not putting weight on that joint, but you're able to move that joint through a range of motion might be useful. This is what I do in individual yoga therapy, is work with people and help create a home practice that they can do. And there are many yoga therapists out there and experienced yoga teachers, a physical therapist. But just because you have arthritis doesn't mean you can't do yoga. In fact, it's probably all the more reason why you should be doing yoga.
Great, thank
I
you.
understand that some people are teaching yoga in the water. So when you have arthritis, particularly in the hips, water exercise can be a great option because, of course, the water takes the pressure off the joints. It unloads the joints. I don't know of any water yoga classes in this area, but I've heard of them. So
That's so interesting. I've never heard of water yoga, but that makes sense. It makes sense, everything you're saying. Well, lastly, just someone named Carolyn, looks like you've overlapped. So if I can read out what she wrote, just that she took your classes at Tier House a long, long time ago. and classes at Duke Integrative Medicine and Duke Ollie, and to your books on to AFib, to now unbelievably had the same surgery, I think, for the basal cell carcinoma on her forehead at the same Duke clinic. So just a lot of overlap there. It's nice to be able to relate to other folks, and she's catching up and is just really thankful for you and for your practice and for teaching us today. And I can see from the folks in the chat that everyone feels the same way. Thank you so much for your presentation today, and thanks to all of you for coming and for participating and for being a part of this 8th annual Aging and Thriving Conference. We will send out or I guess before I close, are there any other questions or thoughts or things that people would like to share with Carol? Okay. Well, we will have the video for today's program, as well as the slides and additional resources, including Carol's book and the website. And if you have any follow-up questions from any of the talks from this week, you can contact myself or any one of the social workers, any one of us here at Jewish for Good. We're so happy you joined us, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Stay tuned for other programming at Jewish for Good in the interim, but we will have our 9th annual next year around the same time. Thanks all. Don't forget to breathe. Have a great day. Yes, we will be posting the recordings, and I'll send out the website that will have the recordings. All right, I'm just going to hope to remove some folks without reporting them to Zoom. Sometimes it takes folks a little while to
Sign off.
so I'm just helping. That was, let me stop recording. That was wonderful.